Carolyn Tomei, State Representative, and you're watching Milwaukee Today. This is the latest in a series of shows about Milwaukee yesterday. And this is the second in a series talking with Anna and Ernie Bisio. And last week when we talked with the Bisios, Ernie was telling us about an absolutely miraculous situation where on May 28th, 1939, he fell into the Willamette River in at least 45 feet of water and was underwater for at least 23 minutes, possibly over a half hour, and Staff Jennings pulled him out. And we're going to be hearing about the rest of that story, about how Ernie lived and also about his life since those years. So help me welcome Anna and Ernie Bisio. Well, Ernie, over the last week, for people who were just watching this today, you were telling us about how you fell in the river. It was an accident. You must have hit your head. You thought you were dead. Everybody else thought you were dead. So Staff Jennings pulled you out of the Willamette River and pulled you out. You were gray, you told me. You had no sign of life.
No, he couldn't detect any heart or pulse beat. And for a fleeting moment, he wasn't even going to give me artificial respiration because he said he'd pulled many people out of the water, some that had just fallen in on the dock and so forth. And he just said I was dead. Well, another little boat came along and hooked onto his little skiff, and they dragged me in the water because they couldn't lift me out of the water into the little boat because I was fully dressed and soaking wet, like he used to say. And they pulled me behind the boat over to the moorage, which was about that 600 feet underneath the Selwood Bridge. And then they said, we flopped you up on the dock. The two men that were in the other boat and staff, they lifted me out of the water and flopped me onto the dock. And that's when staff started in the Schaefer-Prone method of artificial respiration and gave it to me for an hour and a half, like it's in the article right there.
An hour and a half. And you hadn't had a breath for at least a half hour at that point.
Yeah.
And so it took another hour and a half before you took a breath.
I gave the first grunt and groan, what staff said. Yeah.
That is just amazing. Yeah.
To add to that, in 1967, because I became the international scout dealer in Portland, in 1967, a man by the name of Charlie Jasperson came to me and he says, I want to buy a new international scout because I'm retired from the Harbor Patrol. And I said, oh. I said, were you on land or on the boat? Oh, no, he says, I was on the boat. He says, I was on the boat called the Milwaukie. I said, oh, the Milwaukie. I said, she made a run for me back in 1939 up at Staff Jennings. And he put his arm and pointed to me across the desk there. And he said, don't tell me you're the guy that Staff Jennings pulled out of the river that night. And I said, yes. He said, we were called to come up there and grapple for you. But by the time we arrived there, because their dock was down by the Hawthorne Bridge, he said, by the time we arrived at the Selwood Bridge, staff had you out of the water. And he was giving you artificial respiration. And he says, we pulled up there at the dock and we took one look at you and you were dead. He said, we'd pulled many people out of the water and we knew a live one from a dead one, and you were a dead one. And we saw right away that there was no way staff could revive you. He said, we stayed there for a little while and we asked staff if we could help him or take over the artificial respiration. But staff said he had such a good rhythm going, because he was a big man, husky man, weighed 225, but he was just a husky man, strong man. Had such a good rhythm going that he didn't want to be interrupted. And this Jack Jennings, the one that I'd sold the car, the little roadster to, they were up in the shop working. They came down and they got some hot water bottles and blankets and so forth to rubbing my leg. And I used to accuse staff. I said, or Jack, I said, you rub my leg so hard that my hair has not grown back there. But anyway, the Charlie Jasperson said pretty soon we left, to go back to our moorage because it was Sunday night. And they may get another call of a boating accident or whatever. He said, we went back to the moorage, and so we checked on you. And by the time we got back there, why, we found out that Stafford revived you.
That is just amazing.
And he said, we just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. What
So,
did the medical community say about that?
Every doctor that called me to interview me said, you should have died. He says, we just don't have people be in 45 feet of water for 20, 30 minutes and survive. He says, your oxygen supply is gone. And people ask me when I've been to big meetings and talk, you know, and then I open it up for a question. The first question I always get, that's just almost 100%. We understand that when the oxygen supply is cut off from 3 to 5, 7 minutes that there's brain damage. And I look them straight in the eye and I tell them there was. I became an automobile dealer. And so that's the story. But the Staff Jennings, it was the Schaefer-Prone method of artificial respiration. That's where they lay the body out and he straddles it. 1, 2, 3, out goes the water, and 1, 2, 3, in comes the air. 1, 2, 3, out. And he did that for an hour and a half. And he said the next morning he could not hold a cup of coffee, and his wrists were just completely worn out.
Why did he not give up? We talked earlier that most people, after a half hour, if nothing happens,
I relive every drowning accident. I read them in the paper, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, interruption, all that stuff.
So you don't know why he kept on going for an hour and a half?
No.
That's amazing.
He just wanted to save me.
Yeah, he did. And he didn't. And Ernie tell her what he wanted in return.
After I was taken to the hospital for of course the Mrs. Jennings or Jack, whoever, called my brother and my mother, telling them that an accident happened. Right away, my brother said, "What happened?" And they said, "No, he's all right." So the neighborhood. A neighbor of ours, they drove my mother and Mario down there because I had the family car. And when my mother and my brother got down there to the dock, I kind of came to and told my mother, "Oh, I'm okay." You know, well, I was more dead than alive, but anyway, I had to encourage her. See. And then the fire department came. Then they had the fire department had what was known as either the Baker first aid car or the Stevenson first aid car. They came and gave me oxygen, keep me going. And then they took me in an ambulance to the Portland Emergency Hospital downtown. And Mario and the neighbor followed down there. And people always ask, what happened to the money? I said, well, Mario took it out of my pocket to pay for the ambulance ride, which was $6 from the Jennings Marina to the Portland Emergency Hospital. But the Portland Fire Department, the firemen, followed down there to give me oxygen, keep giving me oxygen. And they had me in the emergency hospital down there, whatever it was. And Mario was trying to get a hold of our family doctor, who was Dr. Murphy at that time, but he couldn't reach him. So whoever was on the phone there, Mario, I won't say, but Mario grabbed the phone away from this person and said, "I want that phone," because the fireman told my brother, Mario, that they said, we have to get better attention, medical attention for your brother, or we're going to lose him here. Because he's going in and out, in and out. So they found that they had an oxygen tent that was free at the Portland, the old Selwood Hospital, Portland General Hospital out there on 13th. Right. So then they got another ambulance and took me out to the hospital, and they put me in the oxygen tent. And I can remember coming to a little bit, and this Dr. Nicholson, he was the doctor who drove around the convertible with the cheetah parked up on the back.
I've never heard that.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Nicholson. Oh, he'd drive around and he had a cheetah. So anyway, I can remember him coming in the room, And he still had his boots on and everything. He'd been on a fishing trip. Well, he got back and they told him, said, hey, we have this emergency. So he came up there, and I remember he giving some orders, and then I passed out again. This was probably around 9 o'clock, they tell me. Around midnight, I came to a little bit, and I was breathing at about 130 respirations a minute. And I was so exhausted that I felt that if I had to lift as much as my little finger, the exhaustion would kill me. I was just thoroughly just worn out.
Yeah.
But of course, they had me in this oxygen, 100% oxygen I was breathing, and then I dozed off, and by morning, gee, I felt great.
That is just an amazing
The only thing
story.
they were worried about that infection from the polluted river.
Yeah, yeah.
But I must have gotten a spot where there was clean.
Luckily, it was spring freshet, as you said.
So-
that didn't have so many dams in
anyway,
those
yeah.
days.
So that was, and I survived.
And you're here to tell the tale.
Yeah.
Well, tell us.
There is no one in the world that's happier every morning when they open up their eyes than me.
That's great, Ernie.
Yeah, it's just,
Every day is a gift.
oh,
That's right,
absolutely.
that's right.
Just
Yes.
terrific.
That's right.
Now, you went to St. John's, and then you went to Milwaukie High School, and you graduated in 36.
The two of us
The
together.
both of you together. Okay, and I want to know how the two of you got together. Now, you'd been in school together all those years.
That's right. But we didn't date
Right.
even in high school.
She went to Marylhurst College,
September of 1936.
correct. In October of 1936, they give a dance for the freshman girls that enrolled at Marylhurst College.
And at that time, it was an all-girls school. It is now. Now it is not.
Right, but for years and years it was.
Yes, it was until 1974.
Right.
And this dance that they were giving was called the Green Prelude. So Anne comes home to her folks there on 22nd and Washington Street and tells her folks that they're giving a dance for the freshman girls at Marylhurst College, and she would like to go,
I love to dance.
and because she loved to dance, and she apparently didn't have a boyfriend.
I didn't. We had a group of kids in our neighborhood, you know, and we would do things together. And most of the time it was an even number, boys and girls. And then if we went to a dance, we had someone to dance with.
Sure.
But I didn't have a boyfriend, a steady boyfriend.
So she said she'd like to go to a dance, and she says, I've got to ask a boy. And her dad, the greatest man in the world, Mr. Cordy,
Vito Cordy.
said to her, ask that Bisio boy, you've known him all your life. So she called me up.
Not right away. I was too shy. I waited until I think the last minute, and then I called him. And he said he would love to go. He was very charming, as usual.
Oh, yes.
And so we went. And of course, the thing is, he had a car. The other boys I knew did not have a car.
Well,
That's a big asset.
in fact, I borrowed Cowles. He was a mail carrier for years in Milwaukee. He had just traded in his 1934 Ford two-door sedan on a new 1936 Ford sedan. And so I got to use that 34 Ford sedan to take Ann to Marylhurst dance.
And I heard a story about you meeting him at the train with Mario, his brother.
Oh yes.
And
yes.
made an announcement to him that.
Yes. Well, we were engaged in the summer of 41.
Correct.
No, 42. 42. Yes, summer of 42. And but anyway, he had a leave of absence, 2 weeks in March of 1943. And so Mario and I cooked up a thing to do. So we met Ernie at the train, Union Station, and Mario said, well, you're just come just in time for a wedding.
And I said, who?
Who? And he said, whose? And he said, whose? And Mario said, yours. So then, of course, I didn't have much time, and so I did find a beautiful wedding gown, and we had to get special dispensation because it was Lent,
Lent,
and
right.
at that time
You could get married in Lent.
get married in Lent, and
Father
I
Walker
also
took care of
Father Watker, yes, he took care of that, and also because my dress wouldn't be ready in time, instead of Saturday, and of course no weddings were performed on Sunday. Although my mother was married on a Sunday in 1918, but now, and even then, no weddings on Sunday. So we were married on the unlikely wedding day of Monday.
And the wedding was delayed for an hour and a half
Yes.
because her brother, Dr. Cordy, was in school at St. Louis Medical School, and he had just gone back, but he wanted to come back out to be there for the wedding of his sister.
Yes, and of course his train was sidetracked for Army trains, you see.
Sure.
It was wartime. And so the wedding was supposed to be at 11 o'clock. And so all of us are there at the wedding at St. John's Church, the old church. We were married in the old church. And we had to wait. We had to wait until George came in. And I think it was about maybe an hour later. I think we waited at least an hour later.
But I was
Right.
patient.
You
You'd waited that long, waited 7 years.
Since they arranged it all, I said, well, I'll just go along for the ride.
So what did you do after the war?
After the war, I moved in the family home of theirs there at 28th and Monroe. And that summer, Mr. Osty, who had the farm where the Milwaukie field is up there on Lake Road, where they have the football field.
Yeah, practice
and all
field.
the
Yeah, the practice field.
Well, half of that area was farmed by this Mr. Osty, and the other half was farmed by the Bisio family, Armin and Lillian Bisio's husband, Henry Bisio.
Now, are they related to you?
Their dad and my dad were cousins, or
Okay,
second
okay,
cousins over
okay.
there, because all the Bisios came from a little town over there
Right.
called Vignole Borbera.
Yes, we were there and we saw how small it was.
Yeah.
So we know how
So
small.
anyway, Mr. Osty, and I knew him because he and Mr. Ray and his Osty, the other brother, farmed all the land where Guilford Drive was, that whole area in there, and then they split up. So Mr. Osty was farming up there, and I went up to see him. He always was so neat to us. So he said, well, I could use you. And I said, fine, I'll come to work here. I said, that way I'll recuperate from the Army. And he said, I'll pay you 50 cents an hour. And I said, fine. So I went to work there. And then he'd like to get a tractor. So since I was a veteran, I was able to get him a new Ford tractor from the Ford dealer there in, not in Oregon City, but Gladstone. Mr. Geisler, I believe, was the dealer there, and I got him a new Ford tractor. And so I worked for him there in the summertime, and then in the winter, I went to work for my brother down there at the shirt shop.
Now, tell us about the shirt shop. You haven't talked about that yet. So Mario farmed. Did he continue farming while you were in the service?
Oh, no, because in 1937, Mario bought the shirt shop.
Okay, so 37, he bought a shirt shop in downtown Portland, right?
613 Southwest Washington. I know it. I know it well.
Yeah, that's where he. And then and then I worked in the produce truck till 1941. And when I went in the service, everything came to. I sold the trucks and the business. Why other people moved in to take care of it.
Okay.
And so.
So Mario's shirt.
Mario bought the shirt shop in 1937.
With a partner. Barney Ashheim.
And they continued in the shirt shop, and I out in the produce truck. And once in a while, Mario would call me up because I had certain grocery stores that I called on. And he'd call me up and say, Ernie, get out and sell a lot of vegetables, because I just wrote a check to Cluett Peabody, who are the makers of Arrow shirts or so forth. I just wrote them a check, and we got to have some money to cover that check so I can get out and work, sell all the produce I could sell and raise the money, and so that I could give it to him to cover the checks. Because at that time, in buying that business, we took all the available cash and then some to buy the shirt shop.
Right.
And so...
and so how long did you and Mario have the shirt shop?
Oh, it's still running.
Is it Mario's?
Yes,
That's Mario's
yes,
still down
yes.
there?
I was gonna tell you that became Mario's after he went to Lloyd Center.
Oh, I had
Yes.
no idea.
Yes, yes.
I mean,
and our nephew is Mario.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's Ernie,
Mario's
son.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Just
Oh,
the
that's
greatest.
wonderful.
Yes.
He is the greatest boy in the world. Just terrific. Oh, I can tell you an episode about a 30-year-old versus a 60-year-old. I'm the international dealer selling Scouts over there on Sandy Boulevard.
International
Right.
is a vehicle, right?
Yes,
right.
yes, yes.
They make the big trucks and the
Right.
tractors and so forth, but this was the International Scout. Well, in 1978, International Harvester Company announced to all the dealers, we're going to build you each 2 Scouts. They're going to be black in color, and we're going to call them the Selective Edition Scouts. Now, we'd never offered black colors before. We offered red, blue, green, yellows, and beige, and that type of a color, never black. So anyway, I get my first 1978 black Scout over there at the dealership. We get it all shined up and ready. And my nephew, Mario, happened to come over because he was driving a 73 Scout. I had to sell him one at no profit, of course.
Keep it in the family.
So we're standing there, and he looks at that Scout, and he says, Uncle Ernie, order all of these Scouts you can get. Black is the in color.
Wow.
And I said, black? I said, we've never offered black, and I can't see black. And just, he says, you get all these black Scouts you can get. Black is the in color. So I get it all shined up, and a fellow that had a Little King restaurant at 21st and Sandy across from Jensen Knitting Mills came by and saw it, and he buys it. He lives up on Mount Tabor. His neighbor 2 or 3 houses away sees it, and he says he wants one like it. So he comes down and he says, say I want to get a black Scout like you sold to, I forgot his name now. I said, well, I have another one coming in. And when it comes in, we'll get it ready for you. So when it came in, he purchased it. Then about 2-3 weeks later, a fellow was 2 or 3 blocks up the hill from Mount Tabor, right up on the top there. He sees these 2 Scouts. He comes down and he wants one. I said, well, I'll have to see if I can get one. So then all the dealers around, I would call them up and I'd say, can I have your black Scout? Oh, sure. Who in the heck wants a black Scout? So I got all these black Scouts and I started selling them. And the end result is that I sold more Scouts than anybody in the Western region and won a 2-week trip with all expenses paid, including a car at the Hawaiian Islands. So the 2 weeks.
Oh, how nice.
But the sum of the story is that a 60-year-old listened to a 30-year-old.
So you can learn something new.
I learned
something new.
Right.
He told me that black was the in color, and we were about as far away from black as the moon is from the earth. But
Yeah.
I listened to him, and that was the end result.
We've only got a few minutes. There are a couple of things I want. I want folks to hear what you said to me last night about Anna.
She's never made an error in my life.
And I don't want him to say that because that's not true.
Well,
That's
she made
not
one
To
true.
error.
him, as far as he's concerned.
Yeah,
That's
she
not
made
true.
one error, and that's when she called me for her first date.
That's your first mistake, and the rest was history. The other is, Ernie, you're 80 what?
83. I'll be 84 February 28th.
Okay, you're 83 years old, and you are still working 6
Correct.
days a week. Ernie,
5 days a week.
five. Oh, well,
days.
good. You've cut down
days.
one. I'm glad to hear
Well,
it.
no, I go home and mow the lawn or whatever I have to do at the house.
Now, Ernie, what are you doing? We have 2 minutes left, so tell folks what you're doing. Why are you still working, and what do you do?
I handle the parts department. Just before, that's why I was late tonight. I get a call from Anchorage, Alaska. The man needs the hinges and everything
Parts for
his 73 International Scout. And I get a call from a man in Grants Pass, Oregon, who needs the, I wrote it down. What was it? I have to ship him,
so it's
some brake hoses for his 1975 International pickup. So I'm trying to get out of there, and I get these calls from Anchorage, Alaska. Plus, the fellow in Anchorage, Alaska had to tell me how much snow they've gotten up there recently. And then a car skidded into a snowbank and how he pulled it out with his 73 Scout. You have to listen to all those stories, yeah.
And that's what makes you a good salesman. Yes, but no longer farming. You're working just on the Scout.
Yes, when war broke out,
the
the
farm, that
farm
was the
and
end
I-
of the farm.
yeah,
Yeah.
we parted ways, and
Yeah.
that was it.
But you sure stayed in farm country there on Lake Road
Oh,
with all
yes.
those farms
Oh,
around.
yes.
Well, Joey Sergino, you know, and their sons, that farm there is just, it's
That's
talked
wonderful.
about by everyone.
Absolutely. We're so lucky to have that. It's wonderful. And maybe you can talk them into being on our show too. Tell them it was not scary, was it?
He was supposed to have been with me boating that Sunday, but
Oh.
he had 3 dates, not one, but 3 dates that Sunday. So he says, I can't go, so, because we had another interview that's in the Catholic Sentinel, and he was interviewed there, and he said, yes, I didn't go that Sunday, and he says, good thing, or we probably would both have died, or whatever it was.
Thank you so much, Anna and Ernie Bisio. You've been great guests. Thank you. Thank you so much for all you've done in Milwaukee, too. And thank you for joining us today. I'm State Representative Carolyn Tomei, and we've had as our guests today Anna and Ernie Bisio, who have lived on Lake Road for 80-some years. So I'll see you again next week, and we'll be talking more about Milwaukee today and Milwaukee of yesteryear. Bye-bye.